So it doesn't look like there is much of a testing bend to this, right? Like, looks like just testing in the production environment, which is not great. It's not like a Twitter sandbox, is it? Huh. This is all Twitter ads, right? Auto hook. That could be useful. A wrapper around Twit to simplify sign-in. Okay. That could be useful. But look, I think because we're running on the server, it's not going to actually be very useful. Wire. So we could probably would want to use this in the Electron application eventually, but I'm not going to bother. Okay. I think what we want to do now is actually just do a knock so that we can test our interactions. Now, if you haven't used knock before, basically it stubs out HTTP requests from Node.js. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new test for our Twitter service. Yep. And then I'm going to describe our test. So we're just going to say it's the Twitter service. And what does it do? It posts a status to Twitter. Cool. Now, before each test, what do we want to do? Well, I'm pretty sure before each test we want to create an instance of our Twitter service. So let's pull that Twitter service in from the cold. Otherwise known as the source directory. Doom. Okay, so we've got our Twitter service class, and we're going to say our Twitter instance is equal to a new Twitter service, passing in our options and our services, and const options is just going to be an empty, and that's going to be an empty thing object as well. And we care about our credentials, so let's set those. Cool. Now, what do we care about? Well, the first thing is we get an error because we are not actually inheriting from our base class. So we need to const base equals require base. And that should get rid of that first error, and it does. The next thing is services is not defined. Yeah, no, it's not because I didn't pluralize it. Okay, what is the next? Okay, so now our twit config must include a consumer key. Fantastic, that's kind of what we want. So maybe I'll just pull that out and I'll create a credentials object here. And here we'll just define our consumer key. Why am I typing in both places? Our consumer key is dummy consumer key. Our consumer secret, I believe it is, yep, secret, is going to be equal to our dummy consumer secret. Our access token, you guessed it, is equal to our dummy access token, and our access token secret is equal to our dummy access token secret. Now the only reason I'm writing these out in all caps like this is just to make it perfectly obvious that these are dummy values, and then when we see what the server's doing, when we look at the logs and in our tests, we should be able to easily identify our credentials going through. I mean, you could put any strings in there. You could just call it key secret token, right? Like whatever. But I'm just using this to show that these aren't real credentials. Hence the word dummy. They're dummy values. Okay. So then in our test, let's just, I guess we'll have an async test. And what do we care about? Async, and here we'll just await the twitter.post test content. Right? And now, because we're accessing Twitter outside this block, we need to bring it up here. And it's not a constant because constants get defined once. This needs to be a let because it's being defined multiple times. And here we go, invalid or expired token. Fantastic. So what I think is actually happening is I am actually firing off a request to Twitter right now. So I'm hitting their servers with dummy, 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 and annoying them. So we don't want to do that. We want to use knock so that we can intercept those requests and make assertions and just test them, right? So the knock library is github/knock knock without the K. And it's not actually a reference to the knock knock jokes. It stands for node mock. Okay, so what we are going to need to do is just do a yarn add -D for development, knock, and that's going to add knock to our package. Okay, that ran our tests again, and Twitter is not happy. If I require knock, still not happy. Okay, probably should turn this off. Otherwise, I don't want to annoy the Twitter gods. I don't want to get blacklisted. Okay, so here we go. So we've done that. We're just using yarn instead of npm. Wait, one moment. Okay, so this is where we want to define our scope, and const knock equals require knock, and the scope I am assuming is api.twitter.com, and we care about here. I want to make sure that we are not letting anything go through. Okay, so this is what we want to do here. We want to disable our ability to connect outside of the system, right? And now we can re-enable our test suite. So knock is essentially going to short circuit any attempt to get off my computer. See, disallowed net connect for api.twitter.com. So you can see here we've got api.twitter.com, which seems correct. And we're looking at a post. So if we read this here, we can see, is it a post? We'll find out soon enough. We're posting to 1.1, which is, I assume, the version. Statuses update.json. Oops, and we need a slash beginning. Cool. And then we will reply a 201, and let's just say like an empty body for now. Alright, no match. So I think this might be a put. No. Okay, so what we want here is a question mark and a star, I believe. Is that going to work?